Hi guys, Travis here, Perth Diesel Performance. We've just got another video here today. We're going to run you through the installation of a power distribution module into your Landcruiser, which is what we refer to as the PDM. So if we call it the PDM in the video, it's referring to the power distribution module. We've got the full kit in the box here ready to go. We've got the brand new Landcruiser behind us. We're going to install it in there step by step. We're going to walk you through it from front to back, how to install it into your Landcruiser. So stay tuned and you can see how to get it in your vehicle. Alright, so we've got the package here. We're going to unwrap it, and first thing, once we've unwrapped it, we're going to check the contents versus the instructions, which would normally be in the box. We'll unload all of the box. First thing, once we've got that, is page 2. You want to check the contents, what's here versus what should be here. And before you go any further, make sure you've got everything to start the job and finish the job. And then from there, we'll go into the tools you're going to need for it. Checked off everything, the contents wise for the power distribution module kit. Next is the tool kit, what you're going to require to install it into the car. So first of all, one thing we want to say to people, Deutsch plug crimpers, they're something you may not have at home. That's one thing you probably need to look into getting. Scissors, wire crimpers, wire pull, silicone spray, insulation tape, some cutters, a Phillips screwdriver, you know, a few extensions, 10 mils and stuff like that, just to pull some trims off the vehicle, and a 12 mil. You don't need a lot of tools. It is pretty straightforward to get into your vehicle. So read it all, make sure you've got everything to start the job, to finish the job. You don't want to be having to leave it to go and get, you know, tools associated to do it. Power supply harnesses. There is 2 options. We just want to make sure that you've got the right one for your application. However, the power distribution module has 2 power supplies. One is off the house bank battery and one is off the main battery of the vehicle. We're the only ones in the industry that have that option to run off 2 batteries. So the normal loom that it comes with, we've catered for 2 batteries in the engine bay. That's this loom here. You can see there's a lot less wires. That's what they're normally going to run. However, if you've got a battery in the rear of the vehicle, what we've actually done here is we've got power supply from your main battery to a charger, so you can run the BMS 30 or a charger in the rear, and then a power from your battery bank, your power source, back up to run the PDM. So it's got all your earths, everything in there. Obviously there's a little bit of a weight difference, but obviously it's all done to our loom and it's all ready to go. So just check that and make sure you've got the right one for your configuration of your vehicle you're installing it to. Okay, so first things first, what we want you to do is disconnect any power supply in the vehicle. That includes the main battery, the auxiliary battery, or the power supply battery in the back of the car. So disconnect the earths off each battery, make sure it's well insulated, and then you're not going to cause any electrical issues. Prepping the engine bay for the installation. So what we're going to remove here is the upper and lower of the airbox, also remove the grille. And that's all in the instructions in detailed photos and what to do there. So we'll get into it. Okay, so we're at the final stages of getting the PDM mounted up to the car. So we've got the PDM sitting here. We've just laid it down on a guard cover. All the looms are how they are out of the box. What we want to do is unravel. This is the power supply loom. So this one here. Gently feed that through there. We'll leave that one till later. All the looms come rolled up and zip tied. They're all pre-wired, so we can cut those zip ties off. Just be careful that you don't cut any of the wires. This is the interior loom. But first of all, we're going to start with the larger looms first, which is the rear loom. So what you want to do is unroll all the leads make sure when you're pulling it through that they're not curled up or twisted, because it'll make life a bit harder for you. So where we're going to go through is just here. There's a large hole where the factory loom goes through, so we're going to come through there. So we've got the rear loom, we've got that through. We're just going to rest it up there out of the way, and then we're going to concentrate on the other loom now. So that one will stay there. This one, the interior loom does have some open wires. You do need to be a bit more careful with it. It's all done, that's done. This one here is to run the intercoolers, so that's going to come through as well. So now what we've done, we've got all the looms that need to go into the engine bay. They're all here on the other side, so as I pick up the power distribution module, I can feed the wires through. I'm not stressing anything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to prep where it mounts to. We're going to take off these two 12mm top apron bolts here as well. So with the power distribution module, we've got two configurations in it. By taking this to ground, it tells the unit that it's an early pre-DPF. So this one here is a 17 onwards, so this is actually a 2018. It has a DPF, so we just heat shrink that with the piece of heat shrink I had before, and that'll just get tied back to the loom. However, if you have got the earlier model one, you do need to take this wire around here and connect it to the ground stud onto here. So that would need to go onto there. But we don't need that on this installation. So we'll just heat shrink that with glue and tie it back to the cable. Okay, so with the power distribution module, we've got the earth terminals here. It's labelled on the enclosure as well. The main battery here, the stud, positive stud in there, and the auxiliary power stud is here as well. They're both labelled on there what they are. The leads are all going to come assembled on it anyway, but just if you do need to put that earth wire that we've now heat shrunk and tied it back, if you do need to take it to ground, the ground is on the end on the corner here. So now we'll install it into the vehicle. So we're just going to feed these cables back. Just going to place them around there. Pick that back up. That's going to come over there. And it's as easy as that, guys. So we'll just put these bolts, we'll just start everything nice and loosely. Just make sure everything's lined up. We'll check all our wiring and make sure we're happy with everything. Just line that bolt up. There we go. Right, this one here's got to come off of here, the nut. This is our, we do run a small fuse in here. This just powers the keypad inside. There is 3 fuses with the unit. Obviously we've got 2 main power feeds to the unit and a keypad, but obviously none of those fuses should blow because they're not circuits that are turned on and off. So yeah, they're not a serviceable issue, so to say. Okay, so we'll move this out of the way. So what we're left with here is our main power feed. We're going to run that through there. We've got spotlight 1 and 2. They're in the spot where you need to have them, right for your bull bar or bumper, whatever you fit it up to the vehicle. This one here, it plugs into your winch and your front lights, and this small lead here, we can put that through last. that tees into your park lights and high beam feed as well. So nice and neat, it's all ready to go. In the engine bay, intercooler harness. So what we're going to do, there's 4 leads that come through that we've installed through the front grommet. I'll explain them to you. Again, we've got the little lead here that goes to your park lights and high beam. We've got the next size up lead, which is the intercooler loom that runs up to the back of the engine. The large harness runs to the back of the car, and the interior loom. So the first one, easy, this little loom here. You're just going to tee it into the lights here, heat shrink, tape it up, solder it. That's all in the instructions, quick and easy. Next, moving on from there, intercooler loom, route it neatly where we want it. So we're going to put a zip tie on here, on here, on here. We're going to leave a nice amount of, so the engine moves, so it's got flexibility, it's not pulling tight on the harness. It's going to keep zip tie, zip tie, zip tie. And then this intercooler Deutsch plug will end up at the back here, tied off to the loom. If you're not using the intercooler straight away, cap it off with a Deutsch plug and weather pack seals in the back of it, and it's all ready to go. So that same little trick I showed you before with taping the looms up. So when we apply silicone spray to them to pull them through the grommets, we're not going to damage any wires or bend and break any of the strands of the wires. We'll leave that there because I am going to put a pull cable on that, and I'll tape them to that. So that one's nice. So we're just undoing the body clips because we can try and make it as neat as possible. We've zip tied it all in place. We're just going to run you through where we've tied it to, so we'll get a closer look at that. Starting with just behind the headlight, we've got a zip tie here. This loom here, we've just got to put in the park lights and the high beam. So obviously you can see where we've put them all with all the ties. We've left them on so you can identify them a lot easier. So there's one here, and here. What we've done here is we've given you a nice bit of length in the loom here, but we haven't given too much so they can't get any caught in a drive belt or any moving parts on the engine. But it's allowing for the engine to move. We're coming up, following through here, you'll see the zip ties along the factory wiring harness, tied along there. It's tied along on the back up here, and then as you come up here, the plug's sitting there, ready to put the weather pack seal on it, or connect it to your intercooler. Just want to point out as well, with the intercooler, it is twin power supplies. There's not an earth in that circuit, so the earth for the intercooler fans, you'll just earth it to the engine or the bodywork. The unit just switches a positive power source. So I just want to bring that to your attention. From there, we've got the rear loom and the interior loom. So the rear is the larger loom, and then the smaller loom is the interior. So we've tied them off here and here. The air box will go straight over the top of that. With the rear loom, at the moment, we've just tucked it down. I don't know if you can see this one moving through here. I'll just try and squeeze my hand in there. See that one moving down there? We'll tie that off after. But then what we're going to come up to now is the interior loom. So we've got this right up near the firewall, near the grommet up here. So what we're going to do here, so you'll see in the grommets in the firewalls, if you haven't used them already, you need to cut the little boot off the end there and feed the interior harness through it. We'll use a fair bit of silicone spray just to make sure it glides through nicely. And there is 2 grommets. There's another one down here which you can see our uni-chip harness is going into. We'll use this one here for the power distribution module. It will fill that grommet completely. So I've just prepped the interior loom with a pull cable. It's just a little piece of bendy wire. It's blunt on the other end here as well. So when we're poking it through, just gently, you just don't want to be jamming on it and piercing other wires. Just want it to go through nicely. Then I've connected that all through. I've taped it on to all the other cables as well, all here. But the key point, what I want to say is where the grommet is in the firewall, that we've cut it with a pair of scissors, is where you'll see this heat shrink come down, then it gets a little bit thicker just before it hits the corrugated tube. That there needs to go inside the grommet, and then it makes it all nice and watertight, so no water's going to run in the loom and inside at your footwell. So we'll spray that with silicone spray and we'll get it through. Silicone spray, we're not using any fancy silicone spray, it's just something to make the wires slip in nicely. We're putting a fair bit on there. One thing we do see with customers' cars that have had other wiring done is as someone's yanked on the wiring, unless they're doing it with 2 people and feeding it nicely, they've pulled the grommet through the firewall, it's dislodged. So then obviously dirt, dust, everything's coming inside the car. So a bit more lubricant, it'll go through nicely. And you shouldn't have to pull on it hard at all. It should just come through really easy. And then that way, you know you're not wrestling with it. So, and just make sure before you put this through the firewall that you've put the loom around the way you want it, because once you've gone through that way, if it's up and over things you didn't want it over, you've got to pull it back out. So that's another thing, unless you want to do it twice, just keep an eye on where it is. Right, so we're inside the vehicle, we've silicone sprayed, dragged it all through. We're going to remove these trims so we can see what's going on a bit easier. These two 10mm head screws go here and here. Literally, when that pops off, you do have to pull it off. It is just pull clips. We've just cheated a little bit there. The diff lock switch, remove that. Obviously, when you put this trim back up, mental note, make sure you plug it back in or you won't have lockers. You won't get any lights on the dash. You just won't be able to get your lockers engaged. Then down here as well, the little thumb screw. Remove him, pull this trim up. That trim can come out of the way. All right, we've got a bit clearer view what we're doing up there. So grab a light or something and have a look up under the dash. Duck your head up there, find that little metal trace wire that we had. So if you can see here, we've got it here. We're just going to gently drag on it. It should just start to pull through nicely. What I'm going to do is just duck out to the engine bay. Now I've got it started, I'm just going to check it's where I want it to be and not caught. In the car, it was wrapped around the fuel manager, fuel filtration kit, so I'm just gently pulling on it. And I can see up there as well. Right, a bit more. And you'll see when you get these other leads through, when you've got these other leads, you'll see them coming through. You can pull them through because there's nothing on the end of them. So they'll come through like that. They're bare-ended wires. Now, we've just got to pull, and I'm pretty sure that should be about home where it needs to be. I'm just going to go and have a look in the engine bay and just see it's in the right location. As you can see, the convoluted tube now with the heat shrink is pulled into the grommet in the firewall, so it's sealed nice and tight. So that's what we're after. You need your Deutsch plug crimpers and a set of wire strippers, and you'll get the 4 female Deutsch plug crimps, and then you've got the pin allocation in the instructions as well. So obviously what we'll do here is we just strip these wires off just enough so they go into the back of the Deutsch plug, so we'll do that. Okay, so with the Deutsch plug, you know when you've got it perfect, when you slide it into the back of it and the insulation comes right up to the back of it. If you've got too much wire stripped back, it's going to look something like this. You want it to go right up to the back of it. So you don't need, 20mm, you've probably got about 5mm max. Alright, so put them in there. Deutsch crimpers, push it in, crimp all the way down. Come off, check that it's a nice secure connection as well. Same thing on here. So it just sits on there like that. Deutsch plug crimper. Checking each one as you go. Sometimes you might think you've crimped it right, but it hasn't actually got a nice positive lock onto the wire. So they're ready to go. When you come to the Deutsch plug, on the back here, it's numbered. So what you'll see on the back of the Deutsch plug, it's numbered 1, 2, 3, and the top corner 4. They allocate to the different wire colours and the pins, all in the instructions. So just make sure you get that the right way around, because obviously we've got power, earth, can high and can low to the actual keypad itself. So we'll pin them out. Green is pin 1, so grab the green wire. Deutsch plug, the orange plate on the front of them is the locking plate. So you want to make sure that's off when you push the wires through. So what do we say? Green is pin 1. So just look in the light, pin 1. It's locked in, it's come flush up to the top. Orange is pin 2. pin 2 is next to, and you'll see, same thing, it's come up flush. Black is pin 3, we haven't done that yet because that's earth, but we'll jump straight to red, which is pin 4. And like I said earlier, they're numbered on the back, just make sure you get the colour and the number the right way around. Alright, that's ready to go. When you have got the black wire in there as well, pin that in. This locking tab, that just clicks, just push it in, it locks them in and holds the locking tabs in. And literally, that there, you're going to run that, all this lead straight across the edge here to your keypad. It's going to come out near your ashtray, and away we go. That's the keypad, that's the switch panel all hooked up. So simple as that. Ashtray assembly. To remove it, there's simply a trim clip here, and there's one down here as well. I'll just take the light out. The globe holder has to come out as well. There we go, simple as that. Okay, switch panel's in, just clips back in where the ashtray come out of, which is a clip here, and a clip there, and then this Deutsch plug will marry up with that. In behind the dash when you put it back together, and then it's all done. No holes drilled, really simple, easy to work with. Okay, so we've ran the keypad switch room, we've tied it off here, we've run it up here nicely, we've got the plug sitting up here now. So we're talking earlier about a black wire in pin 3, which is the earth. We're just going to install that. So we've locked them all in, they're all flush. I'm just going to put the locking gland on the Deutsch plug, which literally just gets pushed in, like so. Now, referring back to the instructions, basically what you need to do is splice in the black wire from the 3-pin Deutsch plug to the earth wire from the ashtray light. This wire up here, you can see I've got a fair bit of length in it. You can cut that to length, make it nice and neat. Now, obviously we've left this a fair bit of length there so you can got something to work with. Also, if you're installing our battery kit as well, the battery link, it's a good time to actually put the light in, the park light for that as well. If you've got the whole kit, do it all once and it's job done. So now it's time to start making provisions to mount the switch. What that entails is obviously doing a 4-pin Deutsch plug, removing the ashtray, and this just clips in. Don't have to drill any holes. We've made it to suit the vehicle. So I'm going to pop out the ashtray, a couple little 10 mils. We're halfway through removing the trim. We've removed the 2 10mm screws at the bottom, the ashtray here. The top fascia does need to come away a bit just to get this right out of the car. This top section is all just on push clips as well. The trick to getting that up is you'll see 2 little slots in here. You can just get a little screwdriver, just lightly put some pressure on it, it'll just pop up. So then in turn, this bottom trim, so with the bottom trim, same thing, just a bit of pressure each side. It's just got push clips. So then obviously we can undo the sockets on the rear. We've removed the dash. Obviously you've got all these connectors all here. They'll only go back in one way as well. So we're going to dislodge the ashtray here as well, so we can get that apart. Okay, so what we've got here, we've got the CANBUS connector. So this gives the input from the vehicle to the power distribution module, tells it everything that's going on. So pretty much you've got a blue and a grey wire here and a little connector here. One thing we want to make sure in the instructions as well, there's a little locking tab just on the end. We want to make sure that's out. Look, with this connector as well, you get one go at it. Once it's clipped in, it's locked in. So before you push all the wires right in, make sure the orientation's right. In the instructions, we've got a whole page with big pictures on it with not much writing, so we try to keep it really simple. So pretty much holding it like that. The blue wire goes to the bottom. And the grey wire goes to the top, like so. And just double check that 100% grey to the top with the picture on the instructions. Hold the connector the same way, the orientation as well. Then push them in. Just be gentle with them, you don't want to force them in. Make sure you got them the right way as well. You got it?
Yep.
Okay, so once we've got the connector there, you'll see the orientation, grey wires at the top, blue wires at the bottom, the locking tabs, the release tab is at the top here. The little locking tab we're going to push in now. There you go, you see there, it's all flush down the bottom here. That locks the pins in so they can't come out. So it's the same as what's in the instructions. So pretty much that wire now clips in just under the dash. It's behind the OBD connector. And we just plug that in. Just direct fit into the connector block up there. Same thing when you're up here and you're pushing connectors in. You just want to make sure they click in nicely. So you'll hear it already. It's positively locked in. So now we can tie that cable up to the other wires that are under the dash. Make sure where the clutch spring is and things like that, that the cable is tied back out of the way. You don't want things, you don't want wires getting caught in moving parts. So with these 3 wires here, on the early model cars that had no CAN bus controlling the whole vehicle, we need to run these up to the dash, and we solder those 3 wires in as well. This vehicle is running CAN bus, it's a DPF version, so with them we just heat shrink off the ends of them and we just loop the loom back and tie it back on our existing loom. But I'll show you how to remove the dash cluster and what connectors they go to. The pin outs are all in the instructions as well, really simple. The other one I'd probably say as well, all of your soldering, get everything where it needs to go and just do it once. Then way you're not lighting the soldering iron or getting it hot, you're not double chances of obviously getting soldering on the carpet. Put a towel down as well, because when solder hits carpet it melts it. So try and do all of the soldering at once, so around the headlight, in here up on the dash, over here with your battery link, and then down here in your kick trim as well. And you'll find it'll be more efficient on the installation. Just to clarify, the early model Landcruisers, we need more analog inputs, so obviously what we need to solder into more places because the vehicle doesn't have as much CAN bus, doesn't have an electrical hub that everything knows what's going on. So with that connector we did earlier with the later model, the DPF version, we don't use these wires because the car's smarter, so to say. So we can only need 2 wire connection, it knows exactly what's going on. The earlier model Landcruisers, we do need to wire and solder these into the vehicle. They have to be run up to the dash. We need them for input, so the power distribution module has all the smarts and knows exactly what the vehicle's doing. So depending on the variant of the vehicle you've got, you may use them, you may not use them. Just refer to the instructions, it'll explain it all to you. Dash fascia, pretty much what you're going to do is put your hand under the dash fascia under here, and you're just going to sort of lightly give it a bit of a pull, and same thing on the other side. Then grab the top. There we go. And the fascia's out. Okay, so we're going to remove this 10mm head here, screw, and the other one over the other side as well. So we're just going to remove them. Then the upper trim. Okay, so you've got to give it a bit of a yank to get these clips out all along the back as well. So once they're out, then there is 4 more screws, which are located here, here, down here, and then down on the other side. Put the screws out, literally just lift it away a little bit, put your hand from behind. There is a couple of connectors. The instrument cluster out of the car, there's just 2 connectors at the back here. This one is the DPF version, has 3 connectors, but the earlier versions where you're going to need to solder those wires in the back, you have a white connector and a black connector. What you want to do is feed the cables from underneath that I was talking about earlier, coming up to the connectors there, and then follow the instructions and it will show you the pin outs to what connectors you need to go to. There's just 3 wires you've got to solder onto, T onto them, and that just gives the power distribution module the extra inputs that we're after to give it the smarts, the functionality in it. So solder them in there. Once again, do all your soldering at once, it's much easier. So what we'll do is we'll go move on to the kick trim in the A pillar here. There's 4 more wires to solder onto, and then pretty much you're at the end of the installation almost. So all the hard stuff's done. Okay, so we've got 4 wires. We're going to connect all them down in the driver's A-pillar. This is a little bit fiddly down here, but just spend some time, you'll get it right. It's just a bit of time thinking, finding the right connectors and the right colours. There's 4 connectors we need to find. The A connector, which is this one here, which is located just here on the trim. And then the B connector is on the black box back here. And then the C connector is the white one down here, down low. And then the D connector is tucked up to this black box here, but I've already disconnected it. You can just put your hand behind, pop it out and bring it out here. All right, moving forward from that, first one we want to do is the A connector. So we want to join the power distribution module, the green wire from the power distribution module. So we're going to get that. We want to solder that one into the pink wire. We're just splicing it onto it, we're not cutting it. So once that one's done, that's out of the way. Just make sure, cut the wire to length to suit, and depending on other accessories in there. Okay, so going to the B connector, that's this one here we mentioned with the black box. On the B connector, we want to join the power distribution module, the red and black wire, which is this one here. We want to join that onto the black and blue wire. And we've got really good pictures in the instructions as well to show you where to go to. And then obviously the pin allocation. I'm reading them off the instructions direct to you at the moment. And then obviously from the C connector, we want to join the power distribution module, the red and blue wire. So this one here, we want to find the C connector, which is probably one of the hardest, probably fiddliest part of doing all of them, is solder him in just down there. So splice that one in nice and easy. And then from there, we've got the last one, is the D connector. So the D connector is this wire up here, this plug. This is an easier one to do. We want to tie the black wire to the red and black, which is the one on the corner here. So not sure if you can see that very well. Instructions, we've got all of the connectors. Take your time. A little trick as well, if you want to, before you start, get the wires out, bit of masking tape, a pen or a texter, put A, B, C, D on them and what colour they're going to go to, just so that way you don't solder one in and it's the wrong way around. So it can get a bit confusing sometimes. So other than that, then that's the power distribution module inside the car pretty much installed, guys. Pretty easy. Okay, so we're under the vehicle. We're going to run the rear loom from front to back. So if you actually have a look up here, you'll see this is the loom here. But obviously we've kept it, you want to keep it away from the crossover pipe and the exhaust manifold. So we've tied it here, and then upstairs we'll tie it back as well to the brake booster vacuum hoses as well. So tie here, we're coming along there. Got another tie here. We're coming back further in the back of the car. So we've got a tie here, another one here, here, here. Roughly every 250, 300 mil. You know, you're better off having too many ties than not enough, because the last thing you want is your wiring coming adrift. And then obviously we're tying there, and then obviously we're just looping this out the back, so it'll sit and it'll slide up between the cab and the chassis, and we'll secure that, and that'll run everything. But we'll talk about that when the car's down, and I'll tell you what it runs. But pretty much what we've done is we've followed the brake lines, and then to the fuel lines to the rear of the vehicle. So obviously different cars with different accessories as well, you may need to slightly change how you've routed it, but you don't want it near moving parts, hot parts, or anything that's weak that it can, you know, you want to secure it to something decent that's not going to come off. Okay, so we're at the back of the car. I'm going to show you where the earth points is and where you need to run the harness, so it runs into your canopy or your rear tray area, so everything's got a central point. So up here, we're actually going to we recommend you use this point as the earth point. It's the factory earth point for the vehicle. So all of your earths is going to go up into your canopy or the rear tray area, earth it here. You've got one central earth then, and then obviously this Deutsch plug that's here is going to go up between the cab and the canopy or the tray and follow the earth up there as well from this point, and then you've got one central earth point. So if you ever have a problem with the earths, you've got one point to come back to. So with the 12-pin Deutsch plug, we're going to run through the pin out so that when we get the vehicle down on the ground, everything's there ready to run. So in the instructions, it's got every single pin, colour, and what it does, and its rating as well. Okay, so at the back, and we said we're going to run through the 12-pin Deutsch plug here. You don't have to use all of the pins if you don't have the applications for it, but we've given you the ability to use them. So on the instructions down here, on the Deutsch plug, they're all labelled. Sorry, they're labelled across the back, what the pin numbers are. There's a picture on here with the numbers, the wire colour, what we've designated it for, but you can use it for what have you, and the circuit rating. So everything's protected through the power distribution module. So everything at the back of the car will run off of this. Twin fridges, auxiliary plugs, lights, reverse lights, roof lights, all of that stuff, it's all there ready for you. So it's, like we say, it's the complete wiring solution. You don't need other fuses or anything like that. It's all in the unit. So simple, guys. To aid in getting some wires through and makes things simple for you, a little bit of insulation tape just over the end of the wires like that, fold it back over on itself, just makes life a bit easier. What we're going to do, there's a little hole in the grommet here as well. Put your finger in there and find that first. Just going to feed through there. All right, so now we've got the leads up. Just going to find it so it's nice and neat in the engine bay, follows other battery, other leads, power sources. It's going to be different to each installation. It's just trying to make it as neat as possible to suit your application. And obviously be mindful that power cables aren't rubbing on any moving parts or tied to the engine as well. That's something we do see mistakes on guys here as well. Okay, so we've spent a fair bit of time off camera running the cables through and down here. I've actually pulled them in and out twice to get them exactly where I want them, but in the end result, it's going to be a lot neater, cleaner, and easy to follow the cables. So in turn, we've pulled the cables up really nicely behind the battery, the factory looms, and made sure it's not running on anything. And then where the fuse holders are as well, you'll see there's a twin fuse holder mounted in there. Then these ones here, they're going to come around, they're going to mount onto the auxiliary battery. Now there is two cables here and there is two cables there. What I want to explain to you there. This is our battery kit, comes standard with a single MIDI fuse holder mounted here and one mounted here. When you run the charging system and the power distribution module, we upgrade this to a twin fuse holder. In the end, that's going to sit there and you've got the twin fuse holder mounted down there. So all in all, it's really neat, it's traceable. And then to explain a few other things in here, this fuse holder we've got mounted onto this bracket, that's the power supply into the car for the ARB twin compressor under the seat. We've got our battery link here. The other one is, we don't run the VSR on it, it's just straight a battery link. And then obviously here, we've got all our uni-chip wiring as well for our tuning solution. Fuel filtration kit's running along here. This positive lead here needs to be routed coming along here and on top of here. So yeah, all in all, there's a fair bit going on. Spend some time to get it neat and tidy. It's worth it in the long run. Getting the electrical layout right is worth it. Okay, so we're at the final stage of putting the auxiliary battery in. Before we do that though, this one lead here, this is for the winch function. What that does is it pairs the auxiliary battery with the main battery, so it gives you more capacity. This wire needs to go onto the positive side of the battery link solenoid if that's fitted to your vehicle. If it's not, obviously tie it up suitably and cover the terminal. So we can put that on there and we'll get the battery in. All right, so with this lead here, this is when I was saying about you got to link it to the battery link solenoid to the positive side. If you've got our battery kit, it's the side this wire comes from inside the cab. So you'll undo the nut here. You'll connect this onto here, do the nut back up, and then zip tie all the wires, and away you go. So that's why when you pair your winch together, it'll click this solenoid together and it'll pair your batteries, and you'll have double the capacity for when you're using a winch. Here as well, this is for future provisions, so you don't need to use this at this stage. Tie that back and put a bit more heat shrink. In the kit, you will get a few extra pieces of heat shrink as well for obviously wires like this. You can, at the moment, we've got it quite long. Probably say to you, just put a small tail on it and just keep it nice and short and out of the way. But yeah, so don't be concerned about that wire being there. We've just put it for future expansions. So we've got the battery in situ, we've got everything sitting where we want it. The earths are still off both batteries. But what we've got here is the power supply harnesses, and obviously the leads come for, we've done them for our BCDC kits.